It's Vegan Freak Radio number 96 for the 15th of July, 2008.
Coming to you from high atop their elite fortress of moral superiority, here are your protein-deficient hosts, Bob and Jenna.
Hey, Freakies, this is Bob.
And Jenna.
We're back again for another week of Vegan Freak Radio.
Yes.
I was getting ready to stumble over that for some reason, so I had to very clearly enunciate.
There you go.
Vegan Freak Radio.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we got a couple things to talk about on today's show.
Yeah, we got articles.
We got a couple articles we're going to talk about.
We've got voicemails.
We got some voicemails. We actually even have, for all the nerds out there, we have a 3-minute and 47-second segment from Star Trek Voyager that the other day we were watching and thought, ooh, we should put that on the show.
Yes. I love Star Trek because it has moments like this where, like, ooh, it makes you think.
It does make you think. It should make you think. I think that's the point. So anyway, I guess we didn't even talk about what we were going to do that in.
No, we didn't. We
sat here and talked about the show for like 2 hours before doing the show. Did we talk about what we were going to do things in?
No.
No. We're just like, huh? Yeah. I don't know.
We have content, it's just not organized.
It's riddling for all of you.
That might help.
It could. It really could. Really could help.
Well, how about to start? We often get sent things in the mail. And we got sent this funny cartoon by someone named Aaron, and it's from a newspaper. It's this cartoon strip with all these kids kind of running around in the field, rolling down the hills, and kid's driving past, and she says, "Look, free-range children."
Happy meat.
That's the kind of happy eat now. Free-range children.
So that was funny. I just wanted to thank Aaron for sending us that.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I like it. So that is happy meat. So I don't know. We were traveling last week. Do you want to do the articles first?
Let's do the articles first.
Into the Jane.
Yeah.
Into the clip from Voyager. Sorry, I do a very bad impersonation of Captain Janeway from Voyager. But you know, whatever. We were traveling last week, and I was at my parents' house, and in their bathroom, they had, what is this? Men's Health magazine, which you know, it's strange. I don't usually go out of my way to read this, but you know, you're on the toilet, captive audience, and if I have to pick between Men's Health and Red Book, right? Was that what the other one that was there?
Yeah.
If I had to pick between Men's Health and Red Book, guess which I'm going to pick? I'm going to pick Men's Health. So anyway, I was reading Men's Health, and I'm finding out 7 ways to please my lady. You know, every issue of Men's Health is the same, right? They're all like 7 ways to please your lady, 3 ways to get great abs. I don't know.
And it's full of pictures of not only naked women, but also very naked men.
There's a lot of homoeroticism in the magazine.
Especially this one, there was this like Dolce & Gabbana ad, and this guy is like laying back, and he's just wearing this like Speedo, and
like,
his
bars.
It's like right there.
The taint, the dirtiest inch. And now you understand why we have the explicit rating. Right there is the dirtiest inch.
Yeah.
Shielded only by a thin
layer of spandex.
Yes. Although in this guy's defense, he was one of the few people in the world who actually looked good in a Speedo.
This is true.
There's only one kind of person that looks good in a Speedo, and it is like extremely buff,
male models.
Like male model types. Yeah. That's about it.
Yeah.
Everyone else looks like shit in them.
Yes.
And trust me, I've been to Europe and lived in Europe and lived actually in Barcelona, and so I have seen basically every different kind of European you could possibly see wearing a Speedo, and I can tell you, it should not be done. Like, I'm all about body pride, all right, but there are certain things, like, if you got a weenie do you know what a weenie do is? A weenie is when your gut sticks out further than your weenie do. You got a weenie do, maybe you shouldn't be wearing a Speedo. Okay, that said, so I was reading the magazine, and, there were a couple issues there, and one of them I saw, this is called Mailgrams, Men's Wealth, And this was a page. I just saw it and I ripped it out of the magazine and folded it and put it in my pocket. And I doubt my brother will notice it's gone. Anyway, group discount, 7 ways you and your crew can pay less. First off, I don't have a crew. Like, I don't have a crew. I don't have a posse. I barely even have any friends, all right? So I'm pathetic. I have a pack, though. I have a pack.
Yes,
We've got
that's
2
true.
dogs, and so I'm part of the pack, I guess. 7 ways you and your crew can pay less. Everyone wants to enjoy the finer things in life, but few have the dough to do it. That's why we need to stick together. Like-minded consumers can form alliances that defray costs and reduce risk in the open market. Quote, cooperation may be one of the oldest and most underutilized economic themes in the market, says Robert Schiller, Ph.D., a professor of economics at Yale. Follow our step-by-step guide to live like an aristocrat on a bureaucrat's salary. So, hey, I think, all right, that's cool, people coming together to reduce their costs, whatever. The first thing on the list is split a steer. Round up a posse to buy a whole cow. A whole cow.
A whole cow.
Buy beef directly from the ranch, and you can score top-quality grass-fed beef for less than $3 a pound. Sites like, I won't even say it because I don't, well, what the fuck. Sites like eatwild.com and localharvest.org have thousands of listings of small ranchers who raise and sell their own cattle. Beyond its dramatic flavor advantage, free-range grass-fed beef also packs more heart-healthy omega-3 fatty acids than industrial bovine stew.
Happy meat.
After you find a local rancher, head out to the country. Sorry. I was reading that.
I'm like, I don't think you can take beef out of the country.
It's very confused. No one wants our beef, right? No one wants the U.S. beef because it's all contaminated and shit. Anyway, after you find a local rancher, head out to the country, sample, and then make your decision, says Joe Robinson, EatWild.com founder. Potential savings, 60%. Ribeyes and ground sirloin at Whole Foods, $20 and $6 a pound, respectively. Now, Whole Foods, as you may recall from having listened to past Vegan Freak Radio episodes, or having read my incredibly brilliant fucking book, Making a Killing, Whole Foods it's been praised by Animal Rights International, yes, for its pioneering initiatives in animal welfare. Okay, anyway, and they're selling ribeye.
But
it's happy.
Happy meat.
Okay, anyway, ribeyes, ground sirloin, Whole Foods, $20 a pound, respectively. Half a cow from Autumn's Harvest Farm in New York, $2.59 a pound. And I read this and I was like, fucking hell. What a strange thing, right? I mean, real men, of course, have to get their meat right off the hoof.
Of course.
So I read that in the bathroom and...
Got angry.
Yeah. And, being a vegan, I'm in the bathroom fairly often. I mean, I eat a fairly low-fat, high-fiber diet, so...
It's good for you.
It's probably more than you want to hear.
Yeah.
It's like, we're getting into TMI.
It's TMI, okay.
But, look, if you get a group of vegans together, what do they talk about?
Poop.
They talk about pooping and farting and food.
Sex.
Oh, yeah, that too. That too. Maybe it's just the vegans we know.
Maybe.
Could be just the vegans that are attracted to our various chat rooms, forums, and things of that nature. So anyway, moving on.
Right. Well, while we're on the happy meat theme...
I promise I won't play the happy meat thing too often.
But there's so much... Oh, okay. Anyway. We got this magazine in the mail eons ago, like in March. Whoops.
We're a little behind.
We're a little behind, but, it's still relevant. From listeners of ours, Michael and Adana. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it. I'm apologizing if I'm butchering your name there. But anyway, they sent us this whole magazine because it made them extremely angry. And it's called Good Magazine, and they sent us the food issue. And on the cover of this magazine is a cow, a live cow, in this case, being fed some grains, hand-fed grains, being brushed nicely. There's a radio up to his or her ear. And the caption is, "Why pampered cows make tastier steaks." Plus a lot more to chew on. Which is pretty sick. I mean, you have this picture of a live animal being pampered and treating nicely, and you're talking about eating it.
And it's this Happy Meal.
Happy Meal.
Happy Meal. Mm-hmm. Happy Meal.
Right. So anyway, we're finally getting around to this. After I cleaned off my desk the other day, and I found this, and I was like,
of things.
"Oh shit!" Probably should have talked about this in, say, March. But
yeah, that would have been.
Oh well. Anyway, we're getting to it now.
Shit happens, yeah.
Better late than never. Okay, so there's this big article entitled "Guess Who's Coming as Dinner." Why, when anybody has to write about food, do they have to use so many puns? Why?
I don't know. I've never taken a journalism class. Maybe in a journalism class they're like, hey, if you want to catch your audience, write a fucking pun.
I guess. Anyway.
I hope not, though.
I hope not either. Anyway, it starts off saying, it's not enough anymore to glance at the antibiotic-free sticker and dig in. People want to know that their dinner roamed free in a shady pasture, slept on a pillowy bed of hay, and lived a happy life and died a noble death, and then they want to eat. Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah.
Right, so I'm just going to read some choice paragraphs from this article that just make your blood boil. First, they're talking about organic people, things like Horizon. And then they said, more than organic, the small farm movement is humane. Its animals are free range. Ooh, that's a typo. IT''S animals. Its animals are free range, grass fed, patiently raised, artisanal meats, resurrected from nearly extinct breeds. It can be expensive, and at farmers market, health food stores, and restaurants everywhere, we're making the choice to spend a little more to eat and feel a lot better.
Happy meat.
Exactly. So it's not just happy for the cows. It makes you feel so much better because you're doing the right thing, right?
Yeah, man.
And that's what it's all about.
Totally. Let's go vote for Obama.
Anyway, the real question, though, is who is buying the meat? 4-star restaurants and foodies are one thing, but sea change depends on rank-and-file consumers. Little by little, that's who's starting to come to farmers markets. The market closest to my own house in Brooklyn is more culturally and economically diverse than one might expect. Karma Gloss, who with her husband Michael runs Kingbird Farm in Ithaca, New York, says her clientele is solidly middle and lower income. And surprisingly, Alward and Turco claim that a full 10% of their clientele are converted vegetarians and vegans who figure that eating clean meat does more to change the factory farming industry than eating imported tofu with a carbon footprint of who knows what.
Because I don't eat meat, and I don't eat dairy.
So, according to these people, vegans and vegetarians are actually going back to eating meat because they don't feel so bad about it.
Oh, of course. I mean, that's the whole point of Happy Meat.
Of course. So yeah, so apparently the person writing the article is one of those ex-vegetarian types.
Of course.
She says, over the next couple of years, she was talking about her past, I phased out poultry and fish as well. As a college student eating in Cisco-supplied dining halls, this wasn't a tough thing to do. But my vegetarianism was never stance born of philosophy. It wasn't that I was opposed to people eating meat, it was more that I personally found it distasteful. After nearly a decade, though, I started eating fish again. Health, I told myself. Protein, it's good for you. Chicken came next, and then a couple summers ago, I reached across the table at a restaurant and speared a piece of steak off my wife's plate.
Oh, boy.
It surprised me, but not nearly as much as it surprised my wife, whose eyes widened to the size of porterhouses. To be sure, it was the description of lush, pampas grazing beef on the menu that helped sway me. I was one of many people horrified by Fast Food Nation, Eric Schlosser's best-selling 2001 book about the commercial meat industry. To hear Ariane Dagwin tell it, though, my return to the fold was preordained. That's why they are here on Earth, she says in a French accent that betrays her native Gascon. If you believe there is a God and you taste a very good meat, there is no way that this animal was made with that taste so that it could live without us tasting it.
Oh, you must be some kind of crazy person.
That's sick. And that's one of the quotes that the Michael and Adana pointed out as being the most frustrating from this article.
Yeah.
I mean, how self-centered is that? To assume that animals taste good because they were put here for us?
Yeah. I mean, it's an absurd argument. It's like saying, the most unhealthy food in the world tastes good, therefore it's meant for you to eat. Mm-hmm. And it's also it's this whole Judeo-Christian tradition. Mm-hmm. I mean, let's be realistic. That the whole Judeo-Christian tradition is that we are to have dominion, right? Mm-hmm. Humans have dominion, and depending on how you read that any different number of ways. But I think that is very, very deeply ingrained in our intellect, in our kind of social and cultural traditions, and I think that's the big one of the big problems is that we. That's so deeply in our ideology, it's very difficult to step away from that. Mm-hmm. But it's wrong. Mm-hmm. And that's that's the whole point of veganism is to say, look, that's wrong.
That's wrong. Exactly. So then they talk about this one person who has a farm, and she says, it can sound oxymoronic, raising animals with such care only to dispatch them after a determined amount of time. Yeah. And in Gloss's case, it's doubly so. She was a vegan and PETA activist in her younger days and didn't actually eat meat until she began farming it herself. I made profound leaps in understanding, she writes on the farm's website, when I stayed up all night to help a tired sow deliver piglets into the world, and when I killed my first chicken by my hand for my food. To slaughter animals that you raised yourself, to send Bandy to a beef farmer, involves some serious self-evaluation and preparation. You're on the floor, Stephanie Turco says of the days of the rescued veal calves leave the farm. It puts you in a very different place. That's just sick to me. If you can take care of an animal like that, send it to slaughter and eat it,
Yeah.
that's doubly sick to me.
I really
it's
do.
It's not better. It's doubly sick.
I think so.
I mean,
too.
it's one thing if you see a saran wrap steak in the grocery store and you don't know where it comes from. You don't think about where it comes from because they make it really easy for you not to think about where it comes from. You know? But if you're seeing it firsthand, you know what these animals are, how they're living, what they're like, their personalities, and you still do that? That's sick.
It is pretty sick. And I just, again, I really think it's the power of ideology and the power of culture that people convince themselves that this is the way it is, this is the way it always has been, and this is the way it has to be. But it does not have to be that way. And, we need not create that kind of suffering for the things that we eat.
Exactly.
And I know all this stuff is really like complicated mental gymnastics, of course. And, these people are also profiting from what they're doing.
Of course.
So they are profiting on the backs of animals, number one. And number two, I really think that they want to be able to feel good about making a choice that inherently they know is wrong.
Yep. Exactly.
And so this is the way they justify it.
Exactly.
It's exactly the way they justify it.
Yep. And the article ends. They're talking about this farm called Veritas or whatever. She's absolutely right. But after visiting Veritas, the opposite also holds true. That night, my wife and I eat an early dinner. Anyway, that doesn't make sense. Okay. That night, my wife and I eat an early dinner at the same restaurant where I'd taken a bite of her steak the year before. This time, I order one of my own. It's a locally grown flat iron. Locally grown, as if it, sprouted out of the ground. It's neither pale nor exudative. It's slightly gamey, my wife says, but it tastes clean to me. I've seen its life, I respect its death, and I feel okay.
God.
See, and that's where welfarism fails, because they're promoting these kinds of happy meat.
That's right.
And people feel okay about it, and that's where they stop.
And I do think that happens a lot. And you can see in this article, this is the argument that we've had for years, actually, at this point, with people about the whole issue of promoting animal welfare reforms over promoting veganism. Because if you promote animal welfare reforms, I think people, like you just said, look at it as a middle road, right? I'm not eating factory farm meat, therefore I'm not putting the animal through so much pain and suffering. So I'll eat grass-fed beef.
Yeah, and I'll feel good about it.
Yeah, and exactly. And also, I don't really. I have a hard time believing that the consumers of this stuff are lower income people.
Oh, no.
I mean, isn't that what you just said, though? Not long ago, there was a quote from the farmers in Ithaca.
Yeah, that they say their clients are lower and middle class.
Okay. I mean, I don't know what they mean by that, right? America is a very strange country because it's a very strange place because, if you ask people what is middle class, you get some very weird answers. And you ask people what is I have asked people in the past, what is the poverty line? And they've told me $40,000 a year. And I started laughing. It's like, well, shit, that makes most professors pretty poor then.
Yeah, really.
Or close to the poverty line. So, but I really doubt that lower income people are buying this. And again, I think what we're going to see evolving probably in time will be this kind of dual-tiered system in which there are people that can afford to consume in a way that is congruent with their conscience, and people who can't afford to consume that way. And I think that this is just one other way that people can feel good about. It's like, it is like it's just one of these things that it doesn't really get at the root of the problem. It doesn't really address the dynamics that sit at the heart of the issue. And it doesn't really get anywhere. I mean, it does almost nothing.
Exactly. Yeah, and I had to close the magazine because there's a really disgusting picture of a nearly raw piece of meat on there. Someone was eating it. It was just bleeding
I saw
and
that
vile.
upside down. It was disgusting.
Vile.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
And, no one needs to consume this stuff to live.
Nope.
That's what it comes down to. No one needs to consume this stuff to live. And I think that this stuff just forestalls people going vegan. Because the people that eat this stuff are people that actually do care.
They do. They do. I mean, just look at people who used to be vegan and
Yep.
vegetarian, now going back to eating meat and feeling good about it.
Yeah. I don't know, man. They need to meet with the vegan brick of justice. Not that I would ever encourage violence against anyone, because I wouldn't, to be clear. It's a figurative expression that I mean only as a figurative expression. Right, Jenna?
Of course.
Thank you, FBI. So, I don't know. Anything else you want to say about that?
Nope.
Nothing else?
Nope.
Be good to move on because it's making me angry.
Yes, me too.
And I, yeah, it's just making me angry.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of making me angry, here's another article that a couple people sent us by Andrew, I guess is the one we have on here right now, but a couple other people sent it too. This is from the independent.co.uk, and the article is titled, How Our Vegan Diet Made Us Ill. The byline says, Holly Page thought her family's food regime would boost their health, but stick-thin legs and rotten teeth made her think again. Where is it? Okay. So, anyway, here we go. One morning over breakfast, Holly Page looked at our daughter and realized things weren't right. Lizzie should have been flourishing. Instead, her cheeks were pinched, she was small for her age, and although she had skinny arms and legs, her belly was big and swollen. When Lizzie smiled, Page suddenly noticed her upper front teeth were pitted with holes. I was absolutely horrified, recalls Page. At the time, Page was feeding them what she thought was the most nutritious diet possible. They had been raw vegans for 3 years, ate plenty of fruit, vegetables, nuts, seeds, grains, soy, and pulses, but no meat, fish, or dairy. According to the raw food doctrine, Lizzie and Bertie, then 3 and 4.5, should have been brimming with good health, but Page's mothering instinct was on the alert. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't put a finger on it. And she could put a finger up it. Says Page, 45. They were 2 sizes behind in clothes. Of course, children come in all different shapes and sizes, but their growth seemed to be slowing further. I have two older children, so I had their development to measure Lizzie and Bertie's against. There were other oddities. I remember going to the supermarket and buying butter for my older children. Lizzie, who never had butter in her life, would grab the packet and gnaw into it, says Paige. It was really disconcerting. I'd be thinking, what is going on? Here is this purely fed child. Why would she need to do this? I was so brainwashed into thinking dairy products are bad for you. When she took Lizzie and Bertie to her health visitor, she didn't seem too concerned. She said they were in the low percentile but thought they were okay. Yet I knew the children weren't growing. I could sense that there was something wrong. It felt wrong. Finally, Paige stumbled across the answer in an old vitamin book. Although she had no medical confirmation, she believes the family had symptoms of vitamin D and protein deficiency. I felt like such an idiot. Oh, well, there you go. I got the information from a book that had been sitting around on my shelf for 20 years. And that brought an end to their veganism. Today, the family mainly has a raw diet, but they eat butter, eggs, cheese, and occasionally fish. And she says, I had let malnutrition in through the back door in the name of health. It was ridiculous. Now, the article does point something out. It says, at the bottom of page 1, there is a significant difference between being vegan and eating cooked foods and raw vegan. Vegans benefit from fortified cereals, baked goods, and a wider variety of grains and pulses. What's more, cooking aids the absorption of some micronutrients. So it's important that they recognize that. Mm-hmm. Here's where we get into. But Lisa Miles from the British Nutrition Foundation says, the most dramatic change to the diet is being vegan rather than the raw element because you're cutting out 2 huge food groups. This affects vitamin D and protein. So I have so many troubles with this. I mean, okay. And the article basically goes on to be a scare piece about why veganism is so dangerous for children and why, these kids that were raised on a raw diet eat chicken and all this other crap. And it's basically this whole thing like, wow, vegan diets are scary, vegan diets are bad. You shouldn't raise kids on a vegan diet because if you do, they're going to end up malnourished with bulging bellies from what is that called? Kwashiorkor?
I forget what it's called.
Yeah, something like that. I should have looked it up before the show. Meant to and forgot. Anyway, please don't write in and tell us what it is. Right. We'll find it. We know. Just to avoid...
We'll Google it after the show.
Yeah,
so,
we promise we'll look it up and talk about it on the next show, so we don't get like 400 emails telling us. Some little busybody right now is getting ready to go to their computer because it annoys them. Like, come on, I can't believe they didn't know that, those stupid fuckers, and writing us an email. Anyway, the whole thing is basically a scare piece, and I mean, frankly, look, I know I'm going to upset some people out there, but I think raw diets are nuts.
I do too.
I think eating some raw food is great.
Yeah, incorporating raw food into your diet is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, but I think eating 100% raw.
Yeah, it's really, really hard to do it to get enough calories.
I think it
Which
is.
is probably what was going on with our kids. They probably just weren't eating enough calories, and they probably weren't getting enough, nutrients because they couldn't. I mean, you eat that much raw food and it fills you up, but you're still not getting enough calories or nutrients.
Absolutely, and we know plenty of people like Patrick and Elise, right? Mm-hmm. Some of you know them. Mm-hmm. I mean, some of you don't, right? But there are a couple we know that have beautiful vegan children.
Gorgeous, beautiful children.
They're smart,
insanely healthy.
Liam is extremely healthy and energetic. I mean, they know they're fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that that they go to all kinds of trouble to calculate proteins and figure all this crap out. They just feed them a varied diet. Mm-hmm. And so I think this is just a lot of scaremongering. And this is the thing, right? All the problems that we've seen with the vegan diet issues that come up with children all involve some kind of weird form of raw veganism. Mm-hmm. That case number years ago where the people died, where the children died, that was they were feeding them like oatmeal and apple juice or something, and that's it. And
right.
It's like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, anytime, adult or child, you limit your diet that restrictively and you don't eat enough, you're going to suffer.
Of course. And it could be any food.
Exactly. I mean or you could be eating too much and still be malnourished.
Absolutely.
Because you're not getting enough vitamins. If you're eating, if you eat nothing but steak and potatoes, you could be malnourished.
Absolutely.
So.
Is that vein popping out in my forehead?
Not yet.
I feel it. Getting all fired up.
I've seen it. Oh, wait. I see the one on the side of your forehead there.
This is what happens. You can't drink at the same time I'm going to drink.
I'm sorry.
That's
I saw you
fair.
drinking, and then it made me want to drink.
I didn't drink. I was waiting for you. You can't do that. Bad Jenna.
Sorry.
Bad Jenna.
And by the way, we're drinking water. Yeah.
We have had many requests to do a drunk show, and I don't see it happening. Like when it's weird. Okay, we've met people in person, and I think when people meet us in person, they're like, "You're nothing like you are on your show." I'm like, well, yeah, I can't be that intense all the time in person. Like
it would exhaust me.
It would exhaust me too. Doing a show is something where we have to we build up to it, we think about it, we get fired up by reading stupid shit. And so when you meet us in person, if you ever meet us in person, if you're ever unfortunate enough to meet us in person, we're pretty dull.
We are pretty dull. I'm not animated at all. Don't.
This is true.
No, I'm just I don't know. I'm a very calm, laid back kind of person.
You are. You really are.
So. And
that's one of the things that, I think I've always liked about you.
Oh, well, thank you.
But we're just not all this energetic in person. So. Anyway, I guess what I'm saying is that getting drunk would kind of kill the vibe that we need to make the show work.
Yeah, I think so. I just think it would be a disaster. Plus, I don't like to get drunk.
Liar.
I didn't say I didn't like to drink.
Yeah. Anyway, but if you really want to test the theory by sending us very large bottles of Bombay Sapphire Gin, we promise you that we will drink it and find out. I'm kidding. So, anyway, moving on. Oh, why do you want to do
one real brief thing?
An update.
Right.
Well, not really an update. We talked last time we did a show. Actually, time before
Gary.
The time before the two Gary interviews, we talked about PETA and Kentucky Fried Chicken in Canada coming to a deal on CAC, or controlled atmosphere killing. Yeah. And I don't know, to sum it up, basically, PETA signed an agreement with KFC Canada on May 5th, in which KFC Canada will phase in over 8 years the use of controlled atmosphere killing, and PETA thinks that this is the least cruel form of poultry slaughter ever developed. Now, this article I have from WTOP News, which I want to thank Gary Francione for forwarding to me, actually. And speaking of Gary Francione, we helped him set up his podcast. He'll be out very soon on the air with a show.
Nice.
And we'll see how that goes when that comes out, but it won't be too long now. Anyway, Gary Francione forwarded this, and the article says, the CAC, C-A-K method, I just like saying CAC, the CAC method involves removing oxygen from crates that carry chickens and replacing it with inert gases such as argon or nitrogen, PETA spokesman Matt Prescott said Tuesday. The birds do not suffocate, but die painlessly as they breathe the gases, he said. Quote, right now, birds are dumped from their crates while conscious, snapped into shackles while conscious, have their throat cuts while they're conscious, and are dropped into a tank of scalding hot water, Prescott said. With CAK, all of the abuses that chickens currently suffer are eliminated. All of the abuses? All of them? All of them? What about living in a cage and being killed for meat?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Their entire life is an abuse.
Exactly. They don't... But I think this shows how spectacularly PETA does not get it, or how they're pretending not to get it.
Right.
You know, there are no bad homes in heaven. Well, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm getting all sweaty.
I'm getting all worked up.
I am getting all worked up.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
It is frustrating to me because, well, it's just frustrating. Okay, so should we move on to Star Trek?
Yeah.
Okay, so the other day we were watching Star Trek, and I didn't know this, but it's on every day from 9 to 10 a.m. on Spike, which apparently is a channel for men, whatever that means.
I don't understand what's so manly about Star Trek.
It's like science-y outer space shit. No,
I guess.
I don't agree with that. I mean, I think that's, one of these gendered kind of assumptions. Mm-hmm. But
I like science fiction. But then again, I'm weird.
You're a weirdo. Yeah. Whatever. Okay, so anyway, it's on from 9 to 10 a.m. on Spike TV. And so we were watching it the other day. I don't know. I was just drinking coffee and watching TV because it's kind of summer and I don't know, whatever. I was being lazy. So we were watching this. And basically, in case you don't know about Voyager, right? What happened with Voyager? The overall theme is that this is a Star Trek crew, right? A Starfleet crew lost in the Delta Quadrant, the uncharted Delta Quadrant, the territory no one knows shit about, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so the entire series revolves around this crew coming into contact with different kinds of scenarios and aliens, and they aren't in touch with home, and they're really far away. Is that good enough? Mm-hmm. Okay. So this episode was kind of interesting. Do you remember the kind of context for it?
Basically, there was all kinds of weird things happening on the ship, as usual.
What a surprise!
Some people were being like genetically deformed, and other people were having like really bad headaches, and were having like these pains, and things were going on they couldn't explain. They were really angry, and they couldn't explain it. And the resident Borg noticed that there were these aliens on the ship. She
did indeed.
So
she did something to show she basically set her little phaser to identify one of these very they were cloaked.
They were cloaked aliens.
Yeah, so she shot one of these cloaked aliens and it became visible.
Yes.
And they took the alien into custody, and the captain goes into the prison goes into the brig to talk to the alien, and I thought this was really interesting. And here Janeway's entering.
Who are you? And what the hell are you doing to my crew?
My team has been observing you and conducting tests.
Tests? I'd call them mutilations.
I can understand why you're angry. I don't like causing people to suffer, but sometimes it's a necessary part of my work.
What kind of work is that?
Medical research. We're scientists. Like you.
From where I stand, you're a hostile invasion force. I want to know how long you've been here and exactly what you've been doing to us.
I can't answer those questions. It's a breach of protocol for me to be speaking to you at all.
Oh, how convenient. That way you never have to face your victims.
Captain, please, you're exaggerating the situation. Our techniques are as benign as we can make them.
What I've been through for the last few days certainly hasn't felt benign.
Please understand that there's a purpose to our actions. The data we gather from you may help us cure physical and psychological disorders that afflict millions. Isn't that worth some discomfort?
I'm sure you'd see things differently if your people were the ones being subjected to these experiments.
Just as your perspective would change if your people were the ones to live longer and healthier lives as a result. Don't forget, we've been observing you, Captain. I know the most important thing to you is the welfare of your crew. You'd even kill to protect them.
If necessary.
Of course you would. You take care of your own, just as we do. We're really more similar than you care to admit.
That's where you're wrong.
She's entering the cell.
What you're doing isn't self-defense.
She's getting all up in her face.
It's the exploitation of another species for your own benefit. My people decided a long time ago that that was unacceptable. Even in the name of scientific progress.
You're a remarkably strong-willed individual. I've been very impressed by your self-control over the past several weeks. We've been increasing your dopamine levels, stimulating various aggressive impulses to test your behavioral restraints. There's been a great difference of opinion about how much more strain you can bear.
Not much.
You can guess what's happening here.
I'd hoped you might be more cooperative once you realized the importance of our work.
Sorry, these lab rats are fighting back.
I'm afraid that will be pointless. We're monitoring your attempts to break our control over you. You won't succeed.
We may find that you've underestimated us.
Consider what's in the best interest of your crew. We will be continuing our research. If you make no further attempts to interfere, I assure you that the fatality rate will be minimal, though there may be some deformities. And I would be willing to share our final data with you.
You can't possibly expect me to accept that.
If you don't, then the entire experiment and its subjects will be terminated.
What the hell are you doing to my crew?
I love Janeway.
I think she's awesome. I mean, you know, I'm just going to say that up front. I like, there are a lot of different theories about Voyager. Some Star Trek people like it, some Star Trek people hate it. I like Voyager.
I do too.
But, that said, interesting little exchange there between
yeah.
the experimental subject and the experimenter. And really, this hits at the heart of a lot of the issues that are behind justifications for animal experimentation, too. Mm-hmm. Because what the experimenter said to Janeway was, we're developing cures, we're developing things that will help millions of people.
Right.
And think about it from this perspective. You've got a crew of how many hundred people versus millions. And Janeway objects because she sees it as a right of that crew to not be interfered with.
Exactly.
And the experimenter finds that troubling because the experimenter is using a very utilitarian logic to argue, well, look, we might hurt a couple of you, but we're going to help millions. And Janeway says, no, we are not lab rats. We are not, and this is the thing, right? We are not your experimental subjects.
Right.
And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and you're exploiting another species for your benefit.
That's right. You're exploiting other, and I like that in the future they don't do that anymore.
I know.
Right?
I wish that were the case.
I mean, look, this is from Star
I
Trek
hope
too.
that is the case.
We no longer enslave animals for food purposes.
Exactly.
There
I
you
love
go.
their version of the future, man.
I think it's pretty good. You ever see any money on Star Trek? No.
No.
But there is still hierarchy, so
This is true.
perhaps things are really not as grand as they would seem. But there is money in Deep Space Nine. There's latinum strips or whatever.
Yeah, but that's not for everybody. It's, well...
Anyway, it doesn't matter. So the point is, though, is that I think this really, really cogently kind of illustrates the logics that are behind a lot of the ways in which we justify the things that we do to animals. And I think this is what happens: is we put ourselves in the position of the lab rat. We put ourselves in the position of the guinea pig. We put ourselves in the position of the dog. Because let's be realistic. Lots of dogs are used for experimentation. Lots of cats. We find that, in fact, no, this would not be acceptable. And I think that's really an interesting way to think about it, because people don't often do that.
Nope.
And I think a lot of what veganism is about is putting yourself in the shoes of the other, and really living up to that. I mean, and thinking about that and doing that and deciding that you are going to think about what it would be like to be the other.
I think so. And, given that, there's the problem of other minds and the problem of, the other species, we don't know exactly what they go through.
Sure.
But at the same time, their mechanisms are so similar to ours. That,
Right.
And you can tell by the kinds of things that they do is that, you can tell what they're going through, and so it makes it easier.
Well, this is true. I mean, there is always this problem of other minds, right? Which is to say, I can't know exactly what's going on in your head at any time.
Exactly.
So I could walk down the street and punch somebody in the face, right?
Right.
I have the problem of other minds. I don't know how much it hurt them, but if they scream out in pain and hold their face, I can't be in their mind, but I have a pretty good indication that punching them in the face caused them a harm.
Yes.
Similarly, if you stick a hot poker in a pig and the pig squeals, I'm not in the pig's mind. I can't ever have access to what is in that pig's mind, but I have a pretty good indication that that pig is burning and hurting in much the same way I would hurt.
Yeah.
Because of these similar physiologies.
Yep.
And so what I like about this, though, is that it really challenges that logic of the good of the many over the good of the few. And that it really reaffirms the notion of a right and what a right is and what it means to have a right, not to be interfered with, not to be experimented on. Right, to have your bodily integrity respected. And I think that is so key and so essential, and it is such a difference between the different ways of approaching animal rights. And actually, I don't think most of the quote-unquote animal rights movement even is thinking about rights. I think a lot of what they're promoting is not rights theory. I think a lot of what they're promoting is this kind of really a speciesist approach, because they are not trying to guarantee rights for animals. They're trying to guarantee a different form of treatment.
Yeah.
That is not guaranteeing rights.
Nope.
That's guaranteeing a different form of treatment. And so when people say to me that there's no distinction between sort of welfarism and abolitionism, I think that's fucking bullshit. There is a distinction. It's a big one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm testiculating wildly. Gesticulating. Whatever. Woohoo. Say green beans, Jenna.
Green beans.
There you go. All right, we moving on to voicemails?
Yeah.
Time once again for some vegan freak voicemail. Maybe we'll hear from a hot chick
or a choice nail.
Callers make us happy and help us keep our sanity, even if all they wanna do is fucking complain about the shitload of profanity.
Hey, Vegan Freak. This is Anna from Massachusetts. Tried calling earlier, but don't really get good reception in my house, so that didn't really turn out very well. Anyways, so I had a query for you. I'm really genuinely confused by this. So my friend was telling me about how she felt really, really bad about eating this pigeon that she apparently thought was chicken. And she was describing to me just how terrible she felt, this poor, poor pigeon. And, like, obviously she wouldn't have cared if it was a chicken, but I was really confused what the difference between a pigeon and a chicken was. I mean, even, like, the cute factor, as one of my omnivore friends calls it, I don't think would really work here. I don't really find a pigeon very attractive. And, yeah, just, like, I tried to, like, take on the omnivore, the compassionate omnivore, if you will, sort of mixed up logic, and I still couldn't understand it. So I asked her what the difference was, and she just said that I was a vegan, so I didn't get it. You know, like, she's definitely right, because I definitely don't get it. So if you could help me with that, I'm just really confused what the difference between a pigeon and a chicken is. All right, well, thank you for being so awesome and having your podcast. It's really, like, a breath of fresh air. It's really cool. All right, keep up the good work, man. Bye.
Well, thanks, Anna. Well, I'll tell you what the difference is.
What?
There is no difference.
Well, yeah, to us.
To us. I think to the average consumer, though, having taught classes and this kind of thing and talked to people about it for a long time, I think most people would say to you that the difference is that one of those, that the chicken is there, that the chicken was brought into existence only to be eaten.
Right.
To the extent that I've ever heard this rationalized, and I have heard people try to rationalize it, and then, you know, I usually ask them a couple questions, and they kind of go, what? Anyway, so I think to the extent that they could try to rationalize it, you would get some rationale like, well, we brought that animal into existence to be consumed, and so the life of the chicken is somehow preordained to consumption, somehow something that we have brought into existence, and so therefore, because we brought it into existence, and its only purpose ever was to be brought into existence for us to eat, that's okay. Whereas a pigeon, well, we shouldn't eat pigeons because, you know, that we don't bring them into existence simply to be eaten. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, we create these kind of arbitrary categories of
food
and not food. I mean, and of course they're different depending on the culture that you're in. But in our culture, obviously, chicken is food and pigeon is not food. So I think that just creates some sort of cognitive dissonance, where to us there shouldn't be any because it's all not food. So, because they're in the same category of bird. We just, I think, categorize things differently. But to her, it was obviously disturbing because pigeons aren't food.
Yeah. But I also think this whole thing, well, you're a vegan, you wouldn't get it, is just a way of not dealing with the essential question.
Exactly. Like she probably couldn't tell you what the difference was.
I'm sure she couldn't, because I have pushed people on this and they can't. I've had people express similar repulsion, right? But they can't really articulate why. And it's a cultural, part of it is this cultural thing, but I think part of it is there's no real explanation. So I think...
Because when it comes down to it, it does not make any sense whatsoever.
Not at all. Not at all. All right, moving on.
Hey, Vegan Freaks. This is Carl from Toledo, Ohio. I'm actually on the way to the park with my daughter right now. I've been vegan for be 5 years on Thanksgiving this year. Vegetarian for a year and a half before that. Very easy transition to being vegan. But anyhow, that's a conversation for another time. I just wanted to leave a quick story, which it wasn't funny then, and it's really not funny now. But the very first day, and you can probably hear Gracie in the background singing, but the very first day I took her to daycare a year ago, I knew in advance I was going to have to fix her food every day for her, which wasn't a problem for me because I would rather her eat the foods that we normally eat at home than to eat any sort of foods that they might have prepared at a daycare for her.
Cool.
So anyhow, they had to fill out all this paperwork in advance of, dietary needs and allergies and sicknesses and all this, all these sorts of things. And come to find out, the very first day after I had filled out all of this information, they fed her a hot dog.
Oh boy!
Which, I mean, I thought unfathomable if they had read the actual information I had written down. So, lesson to be learned is actually talk to someone. Any vegan, vegetarian parents out there, be very specific. Leave no stone unturned. And good luck. Take care. I will be calling again. Love your show. Bye.
Well, thanks, Carl. It sounds like your daughter is very active and energetic.
Yeah, and that's a really, really good advice because a lot of times we assume that people are going to do the right thing. I mean, you wrote down all that information, and they apparently didn't read it, which I would think is pretty dangerous thing for a daycare thing to do. Because what if she had a really serious peanut allergy and they fed her peanuts?
Well, they may have read it and just marginalized the whole idea, right?
Exactly.
Because if it's not listed as an allergy, it's just listed as one of these like dietary preferences things. They might be like, oh well,
who cares?
She needs some protein,
right.
Like just feed the kid a hot dog.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So. Really good advice. Always spell everything out and make sure. I mean, like you go to a restaurant or something, you can't just say, "Oh, I'm a vegan," and expect that people understand. You have to say, "Okay, no meat, no dairy." And that means no cheese, no Parmesan, no mayonnaise. It's like you got to list everything that people.
Like when you go to any restaurant, no ghee, no
no yogurt, no cheese. Right.
So, but yeah, I think it's really important. I think Carl has great advice. Like if you've got kids that are going into daycare or into school and they're going to feed them, you need to be very clear about your wishes because what is it to be a parent except to raise a child in the way that you want to,
exactly,
with your values.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So I hope you flipped out on them.
Well, I don't know, flipping out.
Well, no, but I hope that they at least corrected their behavior.
Yeah, respected your wishes.
Yeah.
Well. Okay, moving on.
Hi, Bob and Jenna. It's Laurie from Boston, or 4 Green Peas on the forums. I love the podcast. I've been vegan for 11 months, and my dog's vegan too, and I don't see us ever going back. And
Good.
You two really helped me to get here, so thank you.
Our pleasure.
So here we go. When I first went vegan, I was really excited, and I felt like if everyone could just learn what's really going on out there, then they'd probably go vegan too.
I used to think that too. I really did.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we're both making a mistake.
Well, yeah.
I think we're both assuming everyone's logical.
I mean, I went from omni to vegan after doing a little bit of my own research, and I am not a historically proactive person, It just made sense, and if I can do it, I think other people can do it.
Absolutely.
But recently I've started to feel a bit discouraged. My friends and family seem to think that it's a big joke or some crunchy college phase, you know. They seem to not genuinely give a shit about animals, and I think it's pretty telling. I mean, I've had one of my friends watch Earthlings and then go out for a burger. They just don't care. So my question to you is this. How's the movement supposed to achieve anything if so many people just don't care, even if they aren't ignorant to the issues? You know, between PETA dressing up like chickens and vegan babies starving to death on the news and Oprah cleansing herself with the vegan diet, how do we get people to take veganism seriously? And how do we get them to actually care? So it's a loaded question. I hope it wasn't too long. You guys are the best, and thanks so much for the podcast. Bye.
Well, thank you.
We thank the hummus for coming to our table.
She dropped the veganism, by the way.
Oh, she did?
Yes, she did.
I was checking the other day and I couldn't find it. I meant
yeah,
to.
she did.
So what is she doing now?
She's going back to eating what she used to eat and drinking and
now
everything.
she's cleansed and now she's going
well,
back to...
someone sent us some links to some kind of, just a couple of website articles. They were kind of gossipy kind of articles of like, you know, Oprah in Italy drinking wine and eating all kinds of bad things. And
Oprah. Okay, well, that's a good question, and I'm glad we could help you go vegan. And I understand your frustration because it is one of those things that when you learn about it and when it works for you, when you understand the logic behind it, you're like, wow, this is sensible.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like, for me, it felt like coming home in a way. Like it felt like this is finally me admitting things I've known for years but have not really wanted to own up to.
Mm-hmm.
And so feeling that way is very powerful, and I think that that translates into you wanting to do things to get other people to feel that way, and I totally get that. I understand your hesitation and your frustration. I mean, because I think a lot of people understand the issues but still will not go that step, and I see this. I saw this happen a lot. You know, I've seen it happen over and over. And I think that how do we get ahead? I mean, the way that I tend to think about it is like triage, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's only a certain number of people you're going to reach. Some people are unreachable. I really think that a lot of people are unreachable. And so I think the place to dedicate our efforts and the place to pay attention are on the people that are going to be receptive to the argument. So, you know, you might not be able to change your family. You might not be able to change your friends. They may not be receptive to it. They may not find it powerful. They may not find it interesting. They may, and that's great, in which case you should devote some time to that. But if they don't waste your time. You're talking to a brick wall. Walk away. You know, plant the seed and walk away and start talking to people who will listen to you. Because I think there's no point in droning on about this stuff to people that aren't going to listen to you. So I think the way we move ahead is by finding the people that are receptive to the message and talking to them about what veganism is. I'm not saying that we shouldn't approach everyone about it. I'm not saying that we shouldn't try to spread the message as widely as possible, but I think it's really important not to waste time on people who clearly have no intention of making any change in their life and who have made that clear to you. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it's really important to be patient, too, because a lot of times,
that's true.
Like you just said, you have to plant the seed and then wait. Because some people do muse on it, and we'll come back to it later. But I think part of the problem is that, I mean, you said that they just don't care. And I think in the majority of cases, and, you know, if you're talking, there's, I think, a very small minority of people who actually really don't care.
True.
But I think most people care, but they don't let themselves care.
I think that's true.
And I think it's because people are amazingly good at putting up psychological blocks to things that they just don't want to deal with.
Absolutely.
And this is a really hard issue to deal with because it goes against everything that they were brought up with, goes against everything that they think is normal and right. And, you know, I think on some level they probably realize that, yeah, it may be not the right thing to do, but I'm not going to let myself care because either they think it's too hard.
It's too inconvenient.
It's too whatever. It's too weird. You know, they just want to be seen as normal. And so they'll just block it out and make fun of you and belittle you and all that stuff. So deep down they might care. It's just that they don't want to.
And I've seen this happen too. Is it people... I've had people come to me and talk to me about this, and they've been very upset about the issues, and they understand it. They feel a lot of empathy about what's going on, and they want to change, but they also feel like they don't want to take the risk to be the outsider. And for so many people, the need and the desire for social acceptance is so strong that, I mean, you can see people commit all manner of atrocities in the name of being accepted into a group or in the name of doing what the group is doing. I mean, this is really, unfortunately, a common dynamic of human behavior.
Yeah.
It's sad, but it's a common dynamic
Yeah.
of human behavior. I'm reading this book called The Lucifer Effect that talks about this. So I think a lot of people don't want to be on the outside, and I think that's an issue. But I also think that that's why it's important to kind of grow veganism from the people that are ready to do it now.
Mm-hmm.
Because as it becomes more widely available and clear as an option, I think people are going to recognize it as something that is not quite so out there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that's why it's important to promote veganism and to spread veganism very widely, and that's why I look at it like triage. I think the more people we get who are going vegan and who are recognizing that veganism is the way to live abolition in your daily life, I think the more that creates the effect of normalcy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I also think that that's why we always say you have to be a healthy, happy vegan.
Sure.
Is because if you show people that, you can live as a vegan and live well, and, you're completely, you can eat things that taste good, you go about your daily life and you're, you do your things, you just do them in a vegan way. I think that can go really far into showing, because a lot of people don't even, they might think of these issues, but they can't conceive of how to live as a vegan.
That's true.
And if you can show them, I think that goes a long way to helping them conceive of their lives as not being all that radically different,
And you raised the point earlier about being patient. I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
I was resistant for a very long time to vegan. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's true. I was resistant to being vegan. I had a friend who was vegan, and I was vegetarian at the time. He kept approaching me and saying, got me thinking about it. So you should think about these things. And I was like, well, I don't want to. Things I would kill myself for now. I don't want to, not have cream in my coffee, right? And do I feel like an asshole even mentioning that? Because that's very frustrating.
Right.
But I think it's important, like you said, to really have patience and to really kind of not push too hard. I mean, I understand that there's this kind of deep desire to make this happen, but it needs to be something that is, I think, consciously grown.
Mm-hmm. And change is hard, so, yeah.
Social change is like one of the hardest things to do. And I think that the other thing that we have to recognize in general as social activists is that change takes a long time.
Yeah.
It's not something that will happen in my lifetime or in your lifetime, or probably even in the lifetime of our children.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to have a long-range perspective about it, and we have to understand that really a lot of the work is about building a foundation in a lot of regards, I think. And I really think that's important.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if we answered your question, but we did blather on a lot. All right, moving on.
Hey, Bob and Jenna. It's Lisa, cat mom from the forums and stuff. And I wanted to tell you this story. The other day, my friend, who I love very dearly, and I don't think that she judges my veganism, even though she grew up on a farm, she said her sister was coming to town, and she wanted me to meet her sister. And I was really excited to meet somebody else in her family, of course, because I love her. And she was like, oh, you're going to get along with my sister so great. She's a vegan, too. And I was like, holy shit. Like, she grew up on the same farm as you, and she's a vegan. Wow, that's really awesome. I can't wait to meet her. And she was like, yeah, she's a vegan because she's lactose intolerant. And I was like, oh. And I was thinking to myself, well, it's better than nothing. And I said, oh, so that's the only reason why. And she was like, well, actually, now that I think about it, she eats meat. So I guess, is she still a vegan? And I thought, oh, my gosh. I didn't know what to say. I said, no, honey, that does not mean she's a vegan. That just means she's lactose intolerant. Oh, what do you do? What do you say? Especially when it's your friend. Oh, gosh, I was just like, wow. So anyway, I had to tell you that story because it was funny and sad at the same time. So I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, bye.
Oh, frustrating too, isn't it?
It is. A lot of people have no idea what vegan means.
Yeah.
But I mean, at least she was, nice about it.
That's true. She was trying to.
She was trying.
Yeah.
But I think part of the problem is people who go around saying they're vegan or vegetarian and then like, oh, well, I'm out at dinner and I'm going to eat X, Y, and Z.
The Paris exception.
Exactly. I'm going to have a piece of cheese because, well, I'm out and there's nothing else to eat, right?
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
And that's so dangerous. I know some of our listeners are in that little category of, well, I'm almost vegan or I'm vegan, but except for when I go out.
Yeah, or if someone makes a cake and I'll just have a
eat it.
piece and not ask questions. Yeah.
I think that's the wrong approach in so many ways because it sends such conflicting messages.
Mm-hmm.
If you're willing to sacrifice on your principles when you're out for convenience, that sends a message that those principles are not important.
Yep.
Well, I'm opposed to child abuse except for when it's fun. What?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's really troubling. I mean, nice of a friend to do that, but, it is really a form of sabotage to say that you're a vegan or a vegetarian when you are not.
Yes.
I mean, vegetarians, no offense, but it's kind of pointless. I mean, really.
Yeah.
Really. Because some of the greatest suffering that takes place in animal agriculture takes place in dairy and egg production. And animals still die. So if you think you're doing something maybe vegetarian, at least for animal rights reasons, you're not. Time to go vegan.
Hey, Bob and Jenna. I'm listening to your podcast right now, and I'm just calling because I had a true test to my patience last night in terms of vegan speaking to omnis. I have this guy in my car driving to rehearsal for a theater production, and I've known him for years, and we got into some kind of conversation about being vegan and why vegans are vegan and all this stupid shit. And I was trying to tell him, like, plants can't feel, and then he didn't want to hear that, so I told him that we weren't naturally made to eat meat, like we can't catch animals and rip them apart, and we're meant to digest vegetables and things like that, and carnivores are meant to eat meat. And then he said, oh, well, but plants are living things, and awful. I just wanted to rant about that, how just some people really don't want to hear what you're saying and even agree to disagree. They just want to prove you wrong.
Animals, if the guy eats steak or chicken, these animals are consuming plants in greater numbers to produce a pound of their protein than you are eating plants directly. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, so if he actually is concerned about plant rights, he should stop eating meat because he would kill fewer plants by eating them directly.
Yes.
But a good thing, I just want to say, veganism is catching on. I'm in a sorority at my university here in Rhode Island, and I became vegan 2 summers ago when I went to Greece with my friend Megan, who's a vegan. Read your book, loved it, became vegan like as soon as I came home off the plane. Haven't looked back.
Nice.
But we're in a sorority together. We started with just Megan and then me, and now there are 6 of us.
Nice.
6 out of like 50 girls being vegan in the last 2 years, which I think is awesome. And pretty soon I think maybe we'll have 10.
Excellent.
Or all. That would be best. All right. Have a great night, and I can't wait for your next podcast.
Well, there you go. Again, this whole idea of just living it positively.
Exactly.
Being a good
example.
A good mentor and a good example.
Showing people what you can eat.
You don't even need a chicken costume.
You don't.
You don't. You don't need a chicken costume. You don't need to send any money to Ingrid Newkirk. You don't need to finance anyone's BMW.
Nope.
You can just be a happy, healthy vegan and do wonderful things.
Yes. That'd be so cool if the entire sorority went vegan.
It would, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
267
I wonder if that'd be hard to do.
Probably.
Write the number down
Could happen.
on your refrigerator door. Add the 001 country code if you call us from Vienna. That's how you leave a voicemail for good old Bob and Jenna.
So?
I think that's it.
Do you really?
I think so.
I think so too. I think so too.
Yes.
So, barring any unforeseen difficulties, we shall return next Tuesday.
Yes.
For another edition of Vegan Freak Radio.
Yes, and we're getting close to show 100.
We are. We have to think.
We have to really prepare for this.
We have a lot of suggestions for
do.
show 100.
We need to go through them and
try to figure out what to do for show 100. A couple people like DJ McBastard and other people had suggested that we do a "Things Aren't As They Used to Be" segment, but about sex toys. That would be very funny.
Yes.
I may do that. There are a lot of different things we have on the agenda. If you have ideas, let us know. Show at veganfreakradio.com. You can call our voicemail line at 267-295-1944. You can go to our website at veganfreakradio.com to listen to the show and do other random crap that you do on the web.
There you go.
I don't know what else to say. I'm done. The vein in my head has gone down.
That's good.
I don't feel it anymore. Is it there?
No.
No one wants the U.S. beef because it's all contaminated and shit. Anyway, after you find a local rancher, head out to the country, sample, and then make your decision, says Joe Robinson, EatWild.com founder. Potential savings, 60%. Ribeyes and ground sirloin at Whole Foods, $20 and $6 a pound, respectively. Now, Whole Foods, as you may recall from having listened to past Vegan Freak Radio episodes, or having read my incredibly brilliant fucking book, Making a Killing, Whole Foods it's been praised by Animal Rights International, yes, for its pioneering initiatives in animal welfare. Okay, anyway, and they're selling ribeye.
But it's happy.
It's
happy meat.
Okay, anyway, ribeyes, ground sirloin, Whole Foods, $20 a pound, respectively. Half a cow from Autumn's Harvest Farm in New York, $2.59 a pound. And I read this and I was like, fucking hell. What a strange thing, right? I mean, you know, real men, of course, have to get their meat right off the hoof.
Of course.
So I read that in the bathroom and...
Got angry.
Yeah, and, you know, being a vegan, I'm in the bathroom fairly often. I mean, I eat a fairly low-fat, high-fiber diet, so...
It's good for you.
It's probably more than you want to hear. Yeah. It's like, we're getting into TMI.
TMI, okay.
But, you know, look, if you get a group of vegans together, what do they talk about?
Poop.
They talk about pooping and farting and food.
Sex.
Oh, yeah, that too. That too. Maybe it's just the vegans we know.
Maybe.
Could be just the vegans that are attracted to our various chat rooms, forums, and things of that nature. So anyway, moving on.
Right. Well, while we're on the happy meat theme...
I promise I won't play the happy meat thing too often.
But there's so much... Oh, okay. Anyway. We got this magazine in the mail eons ago, like in March. Whoops.
We're a little behind.
We're a little behind, but, you know, it's still relevant. From listeners of ours, Michael and Adana. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it. I'm apologizing if I'm butchering your name there. But anyway, they sent us this whole magazine because it made them extremely angry. And it's called Good Magazine, and they sent us the food issue. And on the cover of this magazine is a cow, a live cow, in this case, being fed some grains, hand-fed grains, being brushed nicely. There's a radio up to her ear. And the caption is, "Why pampered cows make tastier steaks." Plus a lot more to chew on. Which is pretty sick. I mean, you have this picture of a live animal being pampered and treating nicely, and you're talking about eating it.
And it says Happy Meal.
Happy Meal.
Happy Meal.
Mm-hmm.
Happy Meal.
Right. So anyway, so we're finally getting around to this. After I cleaned off my desk the other day, and I found this, and I was like,
of things.
"Oh shit!" Probably should have talked about this in, say, March. But
yeah, that would have been.
Oh well. Anyway, we're getting to it now.
Shit happens, yeah.
Better late than never. Okay, so there's this big article entitled "Guess Who's Coming as Dinner." Why, when anybody has to write about food, do they have to use so many puns? Why?
I don't know. I've never taken a journalism class. Maybe in a journalism class they're like, hey, if you want to catch your audience, write a fucking pun.
I guess. Anyway.
I hope not, though.
I hope not either. Anyway, it starts off saying, "It's not enough anymore to glance at the antibiotic-free sticker and dig in. People want to know that their dinner roamed free in a shady pasture, slept on a pillowy bed of hay, and lived a happy life and died a noble death, and then they want to eat." Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah.
Right, so I'm just going to read some choice paragraphs from this article that just make your blood boil. First, they're talking about organic people, things like Horizon. And then they said, more than organic, the small farm movement is humane. Its animals are free range. It's Vegan Freak Radio number 96 for the 15th of July, 2008.
Coming to you from high atop their elite fortress of moral superiority, here are your protein-deficient hosts, Bob and Jenna.
Hey, Freakies, this is Bob.
And Jenna.
We're back again for another week of Vegan Freak Radio.
Yes.
I was getting ready to stumble over that for some reason, so I had to very clearly enunciate.
There you go.
Vegan Freak Radio.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we got a couple things to talk about on today's show.
Yeah, we got articles.
We got a couple articles we're going to talk about.
We've got voicemails.
We got some voicemails. We actually even have, for all the nerds out there, we have a 3-minute and 47-second segment from Star Trek Voyager that the other day we were watching and thought, ooh, we should put that on the show.
Yes. I love Star Trek because it has moments like this where, like, ooh, it makes you think.
It does make you think. It should make you think. I think that's the point. So anyway, I guess we didn't even talk about what we were going to do that in.
No, we didn't.
We sat here and talked about the show for like 2 hours before doing the show. Did we talk about what we were going to do things in?
No.
No. We're just like, huh? Yeah. I don't know.
We have content, it's just not organized.
It's riddling for all of you.
That might help.
It could. It really could. Really could help.
Well, how about to start? We often get sent things in the mail, and we got sent this funny cartoon by someone named Aaron, and it's from a newspaper. It's this cartoon strip with all these kids kind of running around in the field, rolling down the hills, and someone
lived actually in Barcelona, and so I have seen basically every different kind of European you could possibly see wearing a Speedo, and I can tell you, it should not be done. Like, I'm all about body pride, all right, but there are certain things, like, if you got a weenie do you know what a weenie do is? A weenie is when your gut sticks out further than your weenie do. You got a weenie do, maybe you shouldn't be wearing a Speedo. Okay, that said, so I was reading the magazine, and, there were a couple issues there, and one of them I saw, this is called Mailgrams, Men's Wealth. And this was a page, I just saw it and I ripped it out of the magazine and folded it and put it in my pocket. And I doubt my brother will notice it's gone. Anyway, group discount, 7 ways you and your crew can pay less. First off, I don't have a crew. Like, I don't have a crew. I don't have a posse. I barely even have any friends, all right? So, I'm pathetic. I have a pack, though. I have a pack.
Yes,
We've got
true.
2 dogs, and so I'm part of the pack, I guess. 7 ways you and your crew can pay less. Everyone wants to enjoy the finer things in life, but few have the dough to do it. That's why we need to stick together. Like-minded consumers can form alliances that defray costs and reduce risk in the open market. Quote, cooperation may be one of the oldest and most underutilized economic themes in the market, says Robert Schiller, Ph.D., a professor of economics at Yale. Follow our step-by-step guide to live like an aristocrat on a bureaucrat's salary. So, hey, I think, all right, that's cool, people coming together to reduce their costs, whatever. The first thing on the list is split a steer. Round up a posse to buy a whole cow. A whole cow.
A whole cow.
Buy beef directly from the ranch, and you can score top-quality grass-fed beef for less than $3 a pound. Sites like, I won't even say it because I don't, well, what the fuck. Sites like eatwild.com and localharvest.org have thousands of listings of small ranchers who raise and sell their own cattle. Beyond its dramatic flavor advantage, free-range grass-fed beef also packs more heart-healthy omega-3 fatty acids than industrial bovine stew.
Happy meat.
After you find a local rancher, head out to the country.
Oh,
Sorry. I was reading that.
I'm like, I don't think you can take beef out of the country.
It's very confused. No one wants our beef, right?
This kid's driving past, and she says, look, free-range children.
Happy meat.
That's the kind of happy eat now. Free-range children.
So, that was funny. I just wanted to thank Aaron for sending us that.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I like it. So, that is happy meat. So, I don't know. We were traveling last week. Do you want to do the articles first?
Let's do the articles first.
Into the Jane.
Yeah.
Into the clip from Voyager. Sorry, I do a very bad impersonation of Captain Janeway from Voyager. But, whatever. We were traveling last week, and I was at my parents' house. And in their bathroom, they had, what is this? Men's Health. Men's Health magazine. Which, it's strange. I don't usually go out of my way to read this, but, you're on the toilet, captive audience. And if I have to pick between Men's Health and Red Book, right? Was that the other one that was there?
Yeah.
If I had to pick between Men's Health and Red Book, guess which I'm going to pick? I'm going to pick Men's Health. So anyway, I was reading Men's Health, and I'm finding out 7 ways to please my lady. Every issue of Men's Health is the same, right? They're all like 7 ways to please your lady, 3 ways to get great abs. I don't know.
And it's full of pictures of not only naked women, but also very naked men.
There's a lot of homoeroticism in the magazine.
Especially this one, there was this like Dolce & Gabbana ad, and this guy is like laying back, and he's just wearing this like Speedo,
and his bars.
It's like right there.
The taint, the dirtiest inch. And now you understand why we have the explicit rating. Right there is the dirtiest inch.
Yeah.
Shielded only by a thin
layer of spandex.
Yes. Although in this guy's defense, he was one of the few people in the world who actually looked good in a Speedo.
This is true.
There's only one kind of person that looks good in a Speedo, and it is like extremely buff,
Male models.
like male model types. Yeah. That's about it.
Yeah.
Everyone else looks like shit in them.
Yes.
And trust me, I've been to Europe and lived in Europe, and